and welcome to Creating in Color, sharing the creative endeavors of people of color. I'm your host, Kaybe, and today I am joined with Nicole Rola, an Animatic editor whose past projects include Voltron, Legendary Defender, Boss Baby, Back in Business, Archibald's Next Big Thing, and the show based on the popular indie video game, Cuphead. How are you today, Nicole?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you as well. You're an Animatic editor. Do you mind going into detail on what that position is?
Yeah, an animatic editor is actually something I learned about when I was an intern in a studio, because it's not actually broadcasted very well, but it is the person who cuts together the animatic editing is the person who puts together the boards and times it out and puts temporary sound effects and music to basically make a roadmap for the animation people to create the timing and the acting and the whole combination of all of the different pieces of animation, the animation pipeline.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. For anyone who might be listening, what exactly is an animatic, though?
Said and done, and then the board artists draw the boards, and an animatic is kind of like a movie file of seeing the boards move with sound and timing. So you hit play, and it's basically like you're watching a cartoon, but it's in black and white typically. And it's just the main poses of what you're going to see happening.
Oh, that's so cool. So it's like pre-animation, but after storyboard.
Yes.
That's so cool. Is there anything like this in live action? Do you know?
I'm not sure whether that's just the editor's job to do the animatic as well. Because obviously after shooting all of the footage in live action, there will be an editor. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, you're taking a bunch of clips from all different angles and putting it together to make the story. Whereas in animation, you're a little bit more straightforward because the shots are basically chosen and drawn already.
Very interesting. And there are editors that take the animation after it's, animated and then paste it together. Is there any big difference between an animatic editor and that kind of editor?
Yeah, what you're talking about is a post editor. For when post editors, they edit the animation that comes back that is in color and it's completely fluid and moving, and it's basically the stuff you see on TV or your laptop. They have to deal with almost kind of like a live action editor. Whatever is there on the screen is there, and the timing is a little bit finished. There are instances where, you can speed things up, but you're confined to how it's going to look. And post editors definitely deal with retakes, which is in animation. Let's say the showrunner doesn't like a certain blink or a way someone's driving a car. They'll say, hey, can you reanimate this and do it again? Then they'll have to replace that footage once it's redone and retake.
How often would you say a retake would happen after animation is started?
I would say it really depends on the director or the showrunner, and also with the animation studio, if they get it right the first time, if the production's notes are clear. There's a lot of factors that go into the efficiency of an animation pipeline or show, and it also varies from each episode. One episode could be a home run and everything is fine, and another one could be like a train wreck and there's tons of retakes. Yeah, for sure it's situational.
Hopefully it doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, because every retake is definitely a money thing, especially in TV. Time is money, and retakes cost money, and you only have a certain amount when you're making cartoons, so you have to stay within your budget.
As an animatic editor, what does your daily routine look like?
Coming in at 11. No, I'm kidding. So editors in animation, at least, I think all editors, they get their own office, and everyone walks in and it's really nice, but honestly, you just sit at the computer and edit all day. But Yeah, so typically you'll see a couch and a TV, and you'll edit on your computer, and then it's displayed on the TV, and they'll watch it and give notes and say, hold this longer, make this shorter, and you just have to cut on the fly. I would say it's kind of like a performance, and you get boards and you cut that in. You typically have a sound effects library so that you can pick and choose what punches or swishes or, any kind of sound you want the animatic to have to be in there. And then you put, and also you put in dialogue. You get typically on a board driven show, which I'm on, you get scratch and you put it to the acting. On a script driven show, you get the voice actors acting and you cut it to the boards. But then, yeah, you're so all day you're just cutting and trying to make this thing play and then playing it for others.
Interesting. What exactly is scratch, and what does it mean for a show to be board driven or script driven?
Very good question. Sorry, I went into that. Scratch is basically voice recording that is done in-house in pre-production that isn't the final voice actor. So, for example, on Archibald's Next Big Thing, Tony Hale voices Archibald, but say we need to write a line where he says like, I'm gone fishing or whatever, and he's not around to record it because we just made it up on the spot and it needs to be in there. So we'll pull in whomever who wants to say this line into a microphone, and then I'll put it in the Animatic, and that's scratch.
Compared to board driven and script driven, how would you describe the two?
Crew, made up with staff writers and a writing story editor who work with the showrunner to craft these, I would say, nailed down scripts. And then the board artists are beholden to those scripts and basically just put visuals to what's on the paper. In a board driven show, it's kind of a little bit looser, where there's maybe one writer who writes a loose outline of this might happen, this is gonna happen, and then this. But then the storyboard artist, they can really shape the story even more. They like to change things up, and it's kind of like jazz as opposed to classical, maybe. Something is more strict and by the book, and then the other is a little bit more wacky and it'd be funny. We should put that in there. Yeah, just put that in there.
As an editor, do you feel like you have any kind of creative note during the final process, essentially, of animation in the animatic stage?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely an input from the editors. You're the first person who's going to touch what they're going to see when you hit play. So your first interpretation of the episode is going to dictate their perception of the episode itself. Mm-hmm. So I'd say in your build, it's definitely all you. For the most part, you're definitely following the storyboard's PDF and abiding by what the storyboard artist drew, and you don't want to cut away what they have drawn. But then with the music, with how you want this certain tone to feel, music is definitely, it just tells you how you're supposed to feel when you watch something, and sound effects make that world real. So that duty and that role is a pretty crucial one in selling this product that is animation, that is this episode. And it depends on your showrunner too. Sometimes they'll look to you and be like, what do you think, as the editor? Or sometimes then a showrunner will be like, this is what I think, I want this, I want that, I want this. And that's that. So yeah, it also depends on the trust you build with your director. It's definitely it's kind of relationship building.
What are some roadblocks that you run into as an editor?
Roadblocks that you, as an editor, day to day?
Any.
I see. Sometimes certain episodes don't feel as inspirational to you, you don't connect with it, and it kind of becomes okay, I have to do this one. Or an episode that you'll see and you're like, oh, this is so funny. I know I have this idea for this and I have that, and it's easy. So with a creative medium, if you don't feel inspired to do something, mm-hmm. it becomes harder to do. So I guess it's a roadblock to feel uninspired to do something.
Oh, I feel you. So, how did you get started in the animation industry?
Let's see, where do I begin? Cartoons have always been one of the things in my life that's always there. Since like childhood. You know, I kept cartoons around even when my parents were like, you should be watching the news. Like, why are you? And my sister started watching like MTV Cribs or pregnant 16-year-old person or something. Like, I was still watching SpongeBob and Angry Beavers or whatever Avatar. I went to school for animation so that I could do that for a living. And I actually studied to try to be a board artist because I wanted to, you know, make people laugh and draw stuff that would be funny. Just like SpongeBob kind of like inspired me to be a positive person and always look at the bright side of things and all of that. But I realized that I didn't want to draw for a living. Like it takes a certain type of person to be a board artist. And here I was as a PA, like stapling papers and stuff. And I thought, like, did I just waste 4 years of art school? And then I realized that I can be an editorial. Like this thing that I found as an intern, which I had no idea existed because in school we had designers and then we had storyboard artists. And that's it. Was a job. Like I actually had done it in school when we were making the films. When it came time to put the boards together and put the animation together and composite and learned whatever I had to learn to like put things together and put sound effects on it. And I didn't realize that that was animatic editing already. Yeah. So it's kind of like I found it by accident. And it was so cool because it's kind of like the final stretch of everyone's hard work. Designers, they're incredible. They're like crazy design language, like it's beautiful stuff. And then board artists, it's so crazy too. They like all of the motion they have to convey in like line. And then that all comes together with picture and sound and motion. And that's so exciting. Like animation is basically that, and it just feels so rewarding to be in that position. So yeah, I just like I befriended all the the assistant animatic editors at DreamWorks, and they gave me boards that I would practice on, and I'd be like, okay, here, this is what I did. And they'd be like, oh, do this for that and do this for that. And I'm like, okay. I kept learning. And eventually one of the editors was like, I want you to be my assistant. And I'm like, sweet. And then my boss at the time was like, okay, you know what? I want you to follow your dreams, but I don't want to lose you as an employee. So be an assistant, but on my other show. So I never got to be that person's assistant editor, but I became an assistant editor.
That's good.
Yeah. Editors can be cloistered people just who want to stay in their offices and shut the door. But yeah, which is fine. That's totally acceptable for people, whatever makes them happy. But I was constantly like leaving my office and like saying like, hey, what's up? And like, let's all do this after work, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, anyone could be an animatic editor.
What support or resources do you recommend for someone trying to break in?
I would say I can only speak from my experience, which is internships. If you can get an internship so you can get firsthand experience in the studio, that'd be priceless. And from there, I took a production job. A lot of people might hesitate from taking a production job, but I'd say it's incredibly helpful. Like if you want to even be a showrunner at the end of the day, being in production can only help you if you understand like every single thing that's going on in this ship that's trying to move. Production is the conveyor belt that gets the things from A to B. So being in that position of seeing all of the different departments definitely helps you see what you need to learn. The internet is a crazy resource for freaking anything in the world. Like I taught myself macrame over this like quarantine times because of the internet. Like I learned how to make Alfredo sauce from scratch. Like
Whoa.
Yeah, the internet is an abundant resource that can help you find anything if you wanted to, hard enough. And there's tons of podcasts just like this one that kind of help people trying to break into the animation industry just see all the different types of stories that people had to go through to get in. One of them is called the Animation Network, which if you just Google that, it's theanimationnetwork.org. And they have a podcast, and it's tons of different people from at different walks of life just also explaining the way they got in. And I think that's a really good source for people who have no idea what's happening. Also, on YouTube, my fiance, Ethan Becker, he makes YouTube videos that kind of explain how to become a board artist or a designer. Like, he does crazy, insane videos, and they're definitely a genre. But yeah, YouTube too. There's tons of videos on YouTube. But maybe, I don't know, maybe not enough for about animatic editing.
Maybe someone can start a channel about animatic editing.
I know. I've been thinking about that.
Well, you'll have to let us know when that happens.
Okay.
Do you feel in order to be successful in the animation industry, you need to be an artist?
Crazy fans of making cartoons and being collaborative are working in the industry and don't draw. There's a lot of, writers in animation that love it and they write. It depends on your definition of artist, because to me, honestly, if you are creative, you are an artist. It's like we're all artists if we're making something. So if the question is whether you have to draw, then no. But if you are creative, then yes. It's important.
It's a lovely answer.
Thank you.
So what was your upbringing like?
Well, I'd say my upbringing was pretty happy. I was surrounded by a lot of funny people. Like, my cousins were always making me laugh. My dad was really funny. My mom's pretty funny. My sister's super funny. And that really shaped what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, making people laugh in that way. And my upbringing, I would say, was pretty strict. My parents moved here from the Philippines and weren't from around here, so they didn't really raise me like my friends that I went to school with. So there were a lot of differences, but I'm not the only first generation person that I know. So I grew up with a lot of people who did understand what I was going through. I wasn't like allowed outside. I couldn't go ride bikes with my neighbor, even at like 18. Yeah, it was very, very strict. My dad had a very protective, and so that definitely led to me trying to discover a lot of things that are part of the world kind of like later in life, and as opposed to, when I guess people typically do it in high school, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, anyone who's Filipino American will understand and know that like parents or like any immigrant family will know, it's hard to do certain things that are okay or totally fine for other families. Ethan and I talk about it a lot, that like adulthood is basically trying to find everything you didn't get as a kid. Like growing up, I don't know if I got enough praise that I am okay with who I am. So then now I like have low self-esteem or like question everything I do. But Ethan, he was like, yeah, everyone just always supported me, and I felt like totally okay with whatever I did. And now I feel confident and try things without fear. And here I am like, I don't want to do something if I'm not going to be the best at it. Yeah, like psychology, man. It's all of like how you were raised. Like all of our shit came from how our parents treated us.
Oh my God.
I know. Sorry, I got deep. I would say also, to go back to your last question of resources, just watching media, intaking media, like just learning of like people who are artists. They look at art, they see other paintings. When you're cutting something scary, go back to all of those scary movies you watched, and what did they do with the sound, with the cutting.
Would you say that's the best way to develop a understanding of what it means to be an editor? Because you mentioned like the language of cut. Is that how like you can start picking up on how other editors pace things and whatnot?
Definitely watching more media will only help you learn how to edit more. I would say the number one thing you want to ask yourself whenever you make a decision is, how is this helping the idea I want the audience to think or feel? Like, even with drawing, every decision you make is going to tell an idea. If it's not going to support your idea, don't do that. So, for example, if in this moment, in this episode, I want you to think, I'm scared, I'm going to cut and put music in a way that makes you scared. You're not going to put like birds tweeting during a rainstorm if that's not what's happening, you know? So, yeah, I would say just watching stuff and really feeling what's happening in the picture you're looking at. Because you also have to feel what's happening in this fight or in this conversation or even this opening shot of people just like having fun and being happy. Like, you almost have to feel it too so that you can convey it to someone else, which is totally the same with drawing as well. Like with editing, like feeling the emotions and feeling the ideas too will help you imitate life. We're basically imitating life.
When I was taking a life drawing class years ago, the instructor told me to feel the form, just feel it. And I did not know what he was talking about whatsoever. I cannot go up and feel this live nude model because that would be terrible for both of us. So he would dramatically drop and draw a line with charcoal. So then when he handed me back my charcoal, I imitated exactly how he did it, and he shook his head at me and walked away. But I feel like once you start to actually like think of like what is behind that line rather than what the line is, that's when you actually get the feeling of that line.
Totally. I'm nodding this whole time that Kaybe is talking. Kaybe and I actually took the same voice acting class, and
We did.
that is a number one lesson that you have to do for voice acting is really feel in that emotion in that character.
Yeah. I feel like once I started really taking acting classes, that's when I started understanding more of a character's mindset instead of just looking at them as this like archetype. So you mentioned how you notice how different you versus your fiance move through the world and you feel unsure and back down. Are you still noticing those same kind of troubles, or are you finding a way to navigate through them?
It's a process, like even Ethan says, progress, not perfection. And I've definitely been into bullet journaling. I've definitely gotten into that this year, which has helped me a lot. Just writing my feelings down helps me just make them exterior and manageable. Like, I can manage my feelings and my thoughts, and I can recognize patterns and then choose like a healthier one. So I'd say it's a process of like getting rid of my insecurities and becoming more secure in myself and loving myself and self-love and all that stuff, which is awesome. I love talking about that things.
Would you recommend bullet journaling for other people that might be struggling with their own insecurities?
Absolutely. It's definitely not for everyone, and that's okay. There's all kinds of forms of introspection and self-awareness. There's also like meditation or just talking to a friend. I've given bullet journals or journals to my sister and my mom, who I want to share this journey with, and they haven't, taken to it as much as I have, but it has definitely allowed me to be vulnerable enough to extend those gifts, whereas before maybe I would have just thought, okay, this relationship is what it is and it's not going to change. Like, I talked to this person once or twice, and I guess that's fine, because old thought patterns say I'm bothering that person, or I shouldn't. They don't care what I am about. Like, I'm nothing to them. But those are all, belittling yourself and not loving yourself. But because I've found those resources, I'm able to love myself and respect myself more, and that just allows me to make those relationships better. So I found really like watering your own pot definitely allows you to fill other glasses and whatnot. Whatever the adage is, you gotta love yourself first.
So, outside of bullet journaling, voice acting, and your future YouTube channel, is there anything else that you do outside of work?
I joined a climbing gym in January. Yeah, I was like crushing V1s and zeros before this whole quarantine hit. For those of you who don't climb, they go up to like 10. So ones and zeros aren't baby stuff. So I've been crushing the bunny slopes on those climbing things. Yeah. I'm losing all of my calluses.
That's a good thing, though.
No, like, I mean, when I go back, my hands are going to be so soft and not grippy, and I'm going to have to
start all over?
Yeah.
They'll come back stronger.
Hopefully.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, anything that I feel like in the time. I sew stuff. I macrame. I really like doing stuff with my hands. Last Valentine's Day, Ethan took me to like a wood shop class, and we made mugs out of wood. I always wanted to be a carpenter.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
They work.
Oh, it's good.
They hold liquid and everything.
Wow. Nicole.
Yes, Kaybe.
You're a supporter of representation.
Yes.
Do you mind going more into detail as to why you feel representation is important and how we can see more of it?
So important. Very important. Really good question. I was actually just at a book club, a virtual book club, where we talked about representation and how, like, the people who put on the book club was music producers and female music producers, and that you don't see female music producers. So it's like kind of hard to access that. So basically, if you see yourself in media, you can do those things. If you see yourself doing it, you can do it. And when there isn't representation, you build this like void of like, what are my opportunities? When I was growing up, even feeling beautiful, feeling like my own body was good and enough was a struggle, because you don't see, I mean, now it's definitely changing, but you know, there's definitely a specific body type that is the paradigm, and a specific standard of beauty that is unattainable for anyone who's not like a white blonde lady. So I definitely struggled with like feeling that I'm not enough just because I wasn't on TV. Like, people who weren't like me were represented, because representation in media, it's you are invited to the party, you can sit at the table. When you're not, it feels like you're not, and that creates ripples in people's perceptions of themselves, and then thus their contribution to society. So it's important, it's super important for representation, just because it's old, man. Like, it's so old. All these opinions and styles of stories, we're so tired of like seeing the same story again and again. Even because of the lack of representation, that story in itself is such an interesting change to what we've been fed all the time. And then also, at some point, we want to be able to just say a story without having to explain or be, you know, what's the word, like, burdened with that inequity. You know what I mean? It's almost like you don't want to fail because you're already at this level that people expect you to be. That makes it harder on yourself. You start to be harder on yourself for failing. Like, if I fail, then the next Asian female who wants to be an editor can't. Like, which is a crazy pressure to put on yourself, that someone may not. Someone who's a little bit more accepted in society don't have to think about these kinds of thoughts at all, ever.
Yeah.
One day I feel like it'll be there, but I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like because the world was one way, there's no way it'll ever go away. Sam was talking about microaggressions. And there's definitely, it's a subtle sexism now as opposed to outward sexism. And I mean, I'm sure there's outward sexism too. Those like tiny little things will always be there for people who have been people of color, females, LGBTQ. They'll always possibly have those like insecurities of, was that because of this? Was it because I'm that? What we can do, I guess, is just really be vocal about it. I love talking about it because, and not in like boohoo way, like it sucks way. It's like a necessary conversation. Specifically in my lane, if I'm in the episode and I'm looking at the characters and most of them are male, I perhaps try to be like, oh, can this person be a she? Can these things be a she? Sometimes it doesn't even matter if they do turn them into she's. Like, they're insignificant. But maybe just saying the she in an episode can just let some girl watching it feel included.
Yeah.
And specifically too, I just always try to, if like, this is a general thing, not my show specifically, in many shows I've been on, if showrunners are like stuck on a line, maybe especially for a female, I try really hard to give a line or a piece of dialogue or some inspiration to what they can say, or maybe even steer people away from bad decisions. A lot of times I would say, when I say to bring it up and just talk about it, I think Sam went into it too, where Sam said that some of these things, these learned, old, archaic ways of thinking are just so ingrained in us because it's been the script for so long that it's unconscious. And we have to fight that. It's really hard because it's easy and natural, but to move the needle, you really have to be vigilant, I'd say. Like, if it weren't for my line producer, who's a female, our crew wouldn't be half the female crew that it is. But it kind of takes people of color, women, like those kinds of people in positions of power to make the decisions sometimes, or at least like making sure those people are thinking in those ways.
Yeah.
So you just have to be vigilant all the time and just ask those questions like, can they be this? Can they be that?
Nice.
Yeah. Because why not? We take up space too. We're in the world. We should be in the media. The media should reflect the world now. It's quite past time.
What do you feel are the next steps in your journey?
In my journey, well, I've been talking about a lot of like making people laugh and all that stuff, and I've been on a lot of comedy shows, but I feel like I want to diversify in genre. I feel like I want to go into action or do a script-driven show. Someday, maybe go into movies,
Ooh.
Yeah, I would definitely want to transition into working in post at least. Like touching final animation.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. So yeah, just thinking about the next show, maybe switching it up.
So I got a question from someone who's interested in moving into editorial, and she asked, what are potential clients and studios looking for in a reel?
I would say in a reel, definitely be short and succinct. Don't go over 2 minutes. Maybe 1.5 minutes is like the longest you want to try to go. You want to get in and out, because people who are hiring people, they need to get in and get out and see a lot of people. And so that doesn't give you a lot of time to put your okay work in it. So you definitely want to put your like boom, pow, awesome work. Also, this is a major principle in life, is contrast creates interest. So when you're making your reel, have contrast in the styles, in like the tones of the scenes you want to put in there. Because if you work on several different shows, you can put from different shows. Or if it's just the one, choose different kinds of scenes, like a slow scene versus a fast scene, or a angry scene versus a sad scene. I would end on high energy, start on high energy. So like just like a movie, it's like you're making a mini movie. You want to punch them in the face and get their attention, slow it down maybe a little bit so that they feel something else, and then bring it back up and then make them feel good when they walk out and remember your name.
So I have another question. What makes a good assistant, and what skills or qualities are desirable?
I would say with any job, just being able to communicate clearly is huge. And being able to communicate, being able to take feedback, and proactivity. Those three things I feel like could help you in any type of job, any job. So specifically how it applies to editing, I'd say communication is good because you'll tell your editor you're done, or you need more work, or hey, I don't have this, I don't have that. Communication is key. And then open to feedback. That's like if you give me your build and I say, don't do this, do this, do this, don't do this, and then you give it to me and you do the same things, that's a bad editor. You want to listen to feedback and execute it into your next thing, which is same for art, same for production, anything. You want to listen to your feedback and actually do it. Take the notes. And that's how you get better. And then proactivity, I'd say, someone who is thinking ahead and thinking of the person who's going to get this product that you're going to give, just like is such a great quality for anyone. Someone who is thinking about the other person and how can I make that person's life easier? Here are 3 different options for the music, or I couldn't find this sound effect, so I found 3 other sound effects that may work for you. Or in production, I have this question and I tried to solve it, but like by doing A, B, and C, it didn't work. Let me know if you think you have an answer. Those are just qualities for any kind of employee.
Nice. What software would you recommend?
Definitely Premiere. I honestly have pretty much just used Premiere for editing. There's definitely also Avid that I actually haven't touched much, but I hear it's very similar to Premiere. But most studios are using Premiere for even post now. At least Netflix is even using post for Premiere. Basically Premiere. I use Audition every now and then, or I use Photoshop every now and then too. But definitely the internet is very easy to find anything. Google, like, why is Premiere doing this thing? How do I do this in Premiere? A lot of it is learning on the job, to be expected to know every single thing about a software is insane. But just being willing to be proactive in like, oh, I don't know how to do this thing, let me Google it. Huge. You basically know everything because you can Google it.
Right. So I have one last question for another person interested in moving into editorial. They ask, what is the best advice for someone looking for a gig or experience?
In editing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best advice? I would say to do it, to edit. So when I was in production, I would ask my friends for boards. And if like some board artists had old stuff that they didn't need anymore, I'd practice cutting it. And same with when I was in school, I would just do it. Get into Premiere, get some panels, and move cuts around. Actually do it. The more you do it, the faster you get, and just the better you get. Just do it. Shia LaBeouf.
Excellent.
Nicole Rola.
Now it's time for rapid questions.
Oh my God, I've been waiting.
Answer that or yes or no questions, and you answer as soon as possible. Are you ready?
Okay.
You seem super excited about this.
Because I second guess a lot, and I think I might take forever to answer these rapid fire questions.
That's okay. Burgers or tacos?
Burgers.
Roses or daisies?
Roses.
Circles or squares?
Circles.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Okay, how about horror or drama?
Horror. Horror can be funny.
What about drama or sci-fi?
Sci-fi, I think. I'm like thinking about all of these genres and laughing to myself because like I definitely watch a lot of things and just laugh at the most ridiculous things. I love laughing. Damn it. Like every movie's a comedy to me.
Perfect. Pasta or pizza?
What was it?
Pasta or pizza?
Pasta. Oh man, that's hard. That's hard, but I think
sure?
pasta. And no, I'm not. Honestly, pizza's great. I don't know. Pizza.
Okay. Would you rather be too warm or too cold?
Too... Fuck, I'm so bad at this. I want to be too warm.
Vampire or werewolf?
Vampire? Question.
And finally, give me a word that starts with the letter X.
Xavier.
That's a name.
It is a name. It is a name. It doesn't count. Xylophone. Xylophone?
Too easy. Give me a different one.
All right. Xenophobe.
Okay, perfect.
I like how you didn't accept xylophone. I like that. Thank you for not making me basic.
Of course, anything I could do to help.
Yeah. Please keep me from my basicness.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for speaking with us today. Do you have an Instagram you'd like to share?
Oh, sure. Follow me at Nicole R. Rola. That's, I think, 2 R's in there.
And I assume that we will find updates about your upcoming YouTube channel through there.
Oh, yeah. Be sure to check out my close friend's story for sure.
Please follow Creating in Color on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to submit any questions for upcoming guests through our social media or our email, creatingincolorcast@gmail.com. If you are interested in following me, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube as maybe it's Kaybe. Thanks to Nicole is doing weird faces in the camera. We are doing this interview from home, but through webcam.
Yes.
It's
quarantine. It's quarantine life.
It's quarantine life. This is during the COVID-19, if that wasn't obvious already. Thank you to Namikaze for allowing us the use of his song. If you'd like to find more of his music on his SoundCloud, you can go to soundcloud.com/Namikaze, Namikaze. Since Creating in Color is a new podcast, we appreciate any word of mouth or even helping push our hashtag on social media, #CreatingInColorCast. Before we wrap up, do you have any departing words of wisdom for everyone listening?
Check your levels. Always check your levels, which was what I was trying to do. Why my face was doing crazy stuff, and check that you're recording, because I hope I was recording that whole podcast, man. Like, it's been 2 hours and it says recording, but I'm really scared of hitting the pause button.
That's fair. I'm terrified of that as well. Thanks so much for listening. This has been Creating in Color. Keep striving, keep trying, keep creating.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.